Okay, well, I'm going to speak briefly about selling, and I know there's a bunch of people in here, it sounds like have sales experience, so I'm sorry if some of this will be redundant for you. For those of you that are technologists, entrepreneurs, hoping to sell technology, you might find some of this useful. No matter how many slides I have or how many words are on the slides, you're probably only going to remember a couple of things from this presentation. So I'll tell you what those things are. One is, selling is hard. No one's going to do it for you. But thankfully, there is a bit of a process to it, and you guys are probably good with process. So at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you a 6-step process that you can hopefully think of in the future as you're going through this. Now, my hard drive died on the plane on my way here. I recreated these slides on my 7-inch Android tablet. So just for setting expectations, don't expect lasers or anything, right? This is a lot of simple text, but hopefully we get the point across. Okay, so what do you people in the audience hope to get from this? People that are entrepreneurs, technologists, maybe have never sold anything, what would you guys like to learn? I figured I wouldn't get any answers. So, what's that?
Closing deals.
Closing? How to close?
Prospecting.
Prospecting.
I'd like to learn how to find the right person. It's typically 1 or 2 people who actually write the check and make the decision, but finding that person in a big organization can be hard.
I think one big problem is how do you get your calls returned?
That is a big problem. So,
I think there's one other one. It's understanding the difference between a salesperson and somebody who gives good presentations.
that's a very good point.
Especially as you're doing your early hiring.
Yeah, salespeople tend to be different than marketing people, and engineers tend to be different than both. And everyone has their role. I am not a great presenter. I don't entertain people. I can juggle, but I typically don't. What I do, which is probably my strength, is I'm very persistent, right? So I would encourage you, when you're trying to reach that person that you need to speak to, there's really only one way to do it, and that is to persist. You have to continue to try and reach that person that you need to reach. And it is possible to do. As I said at the beginning, though, it's not easy. So I put a couple of things up here because I was afraid I wouldn't get any good input, but actually I was wrong. You gave me some great input. But things like where to go, who to target, how to reach them, and then, oh my God, I actually did get a hold of someone. What do I do now? So the bad news is no one's going to do it for you. And the point I want to make here, and I think that this is a very valuable point, and one that you may want to remember as one of the 3 or 4 from this presentation. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, especially technical founders, say things like, this technology is so great, we just need a website, right? Why don't we sign up Ingram Micro? Because they have salespeople all over the world, and our product's great, and immediately they're going to take our product and they're going to sell it into Goldman Sachs and Ford Motor, and so the temptation is to try to hand off this very difficult process to somebody else. But no one is going to do it for you, right? I mean, when you become wildly successful, sure, everyone will then want to sell your product, right? Everyone will be calling you, wanting to represent you or get in business with you or in partnership with you. But in the early going, no one is going to do it for you. No one will carry your flag for you, right? And so one of the things we'll be talking about is targeting and building bellwether accounts. The good news is you're brilliant, probably. You can actually use that to your advantage, because the assumption that most people have is that you're brilliant. I mean, it's good to work from strength, right? Whatever product you've developed, whatever technology you've built, you are probably an expert in that technology, right? So in that space, you are brilliant. And when people are looking at your technology and they're looking at possibly using your technology, that is a very powerful point, and one that you should not overlook, because Apologies.
Somebody finally returned your call.
Yeah.
Volker would have taken that call.
I knew the number. So, do not overlook the fact that you are an expert in your field, and people want to do business with people that can solve problems for them, right? It's probably the strongest asset that you have. It's probably stronger than your product. It's, I can't tell you how many times I have been able to sell a lot of product into some large company, not because necessarily my product was better, but it was because a technical person who I was working with was viewed by the customer as an expert that they wanted to work with. Right? So don't overlook the fact that you are brilliant and an expert in this field. It probably is your biggest selling point. So I know there's been a lot of talk about marketing and sort of zeroing in on what your value propositions are, and I'm not going to repeat any of that. But in a very simple way, you can think of your product in the terms of, is it better, cheaper, faster than the competition? And if you can't identify at least two of those, you probably are not yet ready to engage with prospects. So you really need to understand what your value is, and there's a lot that goes into understanding whether you're better, cheaper, faster. But if you can't check off at least two, you need to go back and revisit that. Okay, so who cares? You need to really focus on bellwether accounts and account relationships that you can leverage out in the market. You need to look at what your product is and who is likely to be the early adopters of that product. And if you have a solution that is going to help someone design a chip faster, then you need to figure out who in that industry is known to be an early adopter, who has real time to market pressures. Maybe, I don't have any inside information, but maybe you have learned that AMD is trying to get something out in advance of something that Intel is coming out with, right? So they have a real time to market pressure. But you need to identify who in that industry might have these incentives to adopt new technology. If you call up someone and they say, well, this is what I'm using, and you can clearly tell from their responses that this is 15-year-old stuff and they're not moving off of it, then you're probably not going to have a great success rate in that account. So you really need to identify who are the early adopters. And it's not too hard to figure that out. And if you don't know who they are, you can ask around to your friends, ask around to people in the industry. And there are, whether it's in oil and gas, whether it's in the chip market, whether it's on Wall Street, there are people that look at technology as a competitive weapon. It's a way for them to get their solutions to market faster, a way to get an answer sooner. You know, think of the Wall Street people. For them, time is money. If they can reduce the time to get an answer by a millisecond, it's of value to them. I mean, there's actually a rule of thumb in that industry that a millisecond's worth $100 million. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say. So you really need to look at which industry is most likely to benefit from what you're doing, and who within that industry is going to be the likely early adopters of your technology. And when you get those bellwether accounts, then you're off and running. Because now, it's like if you go to HP and say, I want you to sell this technology for me. It's the greatest thing, and it does all of these, it has all these wonderful features. The HP people are going to turn around and say, well, who's using it? They're not going to pick up your flag for you, right? But if you go to them and say, well, Goldman Sachs is in a trial, and Commerce Bank or Intel or Shell Oil, and they're getting, you know, X benefit from using this product, now all of a sudden a partner might listen to you, right? But until you do that heavy lifting and create those bellwether relationships, you're not going to get traction with people. So again, no one is going to do it for you. So now you've identified them, what do you do? Okay, I know that Intel is an early adopter, they're innovative, they have time to market pressures, they probably will love my product. So now how do I reach them, right? My suggestion to you is going to be call them, right? Which is the last thing that probably any of you really want to do, especially if you're not salespeople already. The hardest part of selling is cold calling, and no one likes to do it. Even people that have done it for years and years and years and years. It can be a daunting proposition. Well, I don't know that person, right? They're gonna think I'm bothering them, right? So you have to pick up the phone, call them. There was a comment earlier about email and email campaigns. I have concluded over the past 2 years, roughly, that email no longer is effective. I mean, there was a long period of time where you could say, geez, I know that it's John Smith at Intel, and I have his email address, and I can say, johnsmith@intel.com, you need to talk to me because I built this wonderful thing. And there was a chance that you might get a response. I mean, if you sent a few emails, maybe you get a response. My belief now is that the likelihood of getting responses through email is close to zero. I mean, I just know from myself, I probably have 8 different email accounts, and I can look at them individually or in a consolidated view, whatever, but you get so many, and it's so hard to pick out what might be of value. And the inclination that we all probably have is that none of them have value. And I mean, every morning I go through my email, and all I do is I hit check, 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 and I do it about 30 times, and then I hit delete, check, 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 delete, right? So email is not effective. You have to pick up the phone and call them. Now you have an advantage, because if you call them, you're doing something that 95% of the other competitors aren't doing, because they're still sending out emails and hoping that they're gonna get traction that way. So I think, we've kind of gone full circle where we used to call and then we'd email, and now I think you're gonna have a much bigger impact by getting on the phone. You're not gonna reach them, you're gonna get their voicemail, leave a message. Tell them why you're calling. Hey, I'm Dale, I've got the fastest storage product in the market, I just want 5 minutes of your time, I'm gonna send you an email, all right? Then send them an email. And then a few days later, call up and you probably leave another voice message. Hey, it's Dale, sent you an email. Would love to talk to you, all right? And you will have to call many times in all likelihood to reach the person. I mean, that's just the reality, it's hard work. And it can be frustrating, but you will reach a time, and there's little tricks, like call after 5 o'clock, right? I mean, if it's someone who has an administrator, call after 5 o'clock when the administrator's gone, then you might have a better chance of that person picking up the phone. So there's little tricks that you can play that way, but ultimately it comes down to, you have to find a way to get to that person, and probably the best way to do it is through persistence and calling. Don't leave a message every time, right? Because then you're a pest, right? But just, hey, you call and you get the voicemail, hang up, right? Try again, a couple hours later. I mean, again, it's hard work. Persistence is what wins most often. So you're bugging people. And when I first got into sales, and I didn't start out in sales, I was in a finance path. I worked at a big bank in Boston, and I worked at a big computer company as a finance manager, and then I switched over into more of an entrepreneurial career. And the first thing I thought when I started calling people was, I am really bothering these people, right? And you feel bad, I mean, if you look at it that way. But the way that you should look at it, and what I would suggest to you is a very true way to look at it, is you are a consultant. You have information that they need. These people are running big global organizations, big IT organizations, whatever the case might be. They don't have the time to research everything that's happening in the market. You can become a knowledgeable source of information for them about new things that are happening in the market. One of those new things is what you're doing. Right, so look at it as a very positive thing that you're doing for these people. You're a consultant. You'll feel better about making those calls, and the response you'll get back from those people will be better as well. Okay, any questions? I really don't want to just keep talking. Any thoughts, comments?
I thought your comment about depending on other organizations to do your sales for you is right on. I've worked with at least 2 or 3 companies. I mean, the primary example I think comes to mind is HP's Moonshot project. where, and I call it Project Longshot, but where a number of companies went in and said, they're gonna sell, it was Texas Instruments and it was Calzetta, they're gonna sell our blade into the server markets, but it was just another item on the menu. And it was too small a volume, and they've killed off, and, Texas Instruments has basically shut down their business for that, Calzetta's gone now. And we've seen it again and again of this pattern of, they're gonna save us, and it's just
Yeah,
doesn't work. You don't wanna be on the menu, you wanna be the special.
You can't expect someone's gonna do it for you. Okay, so you got a meeting, don't go to the meeting and overcommit things that you can't do. Don't change what you're doing because they mentioned some feature that came across as important to them and you said, okay, well, I'll redo everything for you. What ends up happening is you never actually build anything, you never finish anything, and you also leave the impression with them that you really don't have anything. So go there, tell them why you're there, tell them what your vision is, and don't do this. I mean, I was at HPCast the last several days. I can't tell you how many presentations I sat through that looked like this, right? You don't need 1,000 words. You don't have to tell someone what every feature is that you have in your product, right? Keep things short, concise. Go into the meeting with a plan. What are you going to accomplish in that meeting? If you're selling a $1 million data server, in your first meeting, your goal should not be to get an order, because it's not going to happen, right? Your goal has to be realistic. My goal in giving this presentation is I want to get a commitment to get my key technical guy on site working with you. Or maybe my goal is to get a prototype in place so that you can try it for yourself. So go into the meeting with a plan, with a goal, decide who is going to be talking. Don't go in there and wing it, right? You need to have that goal and you need to stick to it. The last point on this slide might be the most important point. If you set the rules of the game, you will win. So what do I mean by that? Go in and say, I have a big data server. Well, Mr. Customer, what's most important to you? Oh, price. I mean, the most important thing is price. Okay. Well, I know I'm not the cheapest, so I'm already in trouble, right? Well, aside from price, what's most important to you? Oh, performance. It has to be really fast. It has to be fast and cheap. But that's not reality. That's actually not even true, right? Because it could be the fastest thing on the planet, but if it doesn't run, if it's not reliable, it will not be a good solution for them, right? So you need to really help them understand what is really important. It's not that they don't want the cheapest solution, they don't want the fastest solution, they want a solution that is reliable and performs and is, with a reasonable budget and so forth, right? But if you help them understand these points in the beginning, you will have a much greater chance of winning than if you let them say, oh, well, the only thing that matters is price. Okay. Someone mentioned earlier, in your presentation, get a conversation going. Don't just talk to people. Keep things, big fonts. I like blue backgrounds. I like white text. But you can choose your own colors. But make it easy to read. Don't do death by bullets. Landmines. If you know your competitor has a key advantage in some area, or if you think that this is going to become an important point to them in their sale, cut them off at the pass. Put it in your presentation. Yeah, company XYZ, they have the fastest widget on the market, but it's only because of this or that or the other thing, and we offset that, and again, you're setting the rules of the game. If you know that the other guy has some advantage, don't let them bludgeon you with it. Bring it up yourself, right? Get in front of that discussion. So I like to think of it as setting landmines. Sell, don't tell, right? And then lastly, I said, for all you engineering types, the good news is selling actually is a process, and most people don't understand this. Most salespeople don't understand this. And if you start thinking about selling as a process, you can have so much more success. The number one thing is you have to establish your credibility. It doesn't matter how good your product is. If they don't think you or your company is credible, and you're not going to stand behind them and support them, they're not going to buy from you, right? So the number one thing you have to do is establish credibility with them. You need to understand what their pain points are. You have to establish what their needs are, what their budget is, what their time frame is. Everyone's like, always be closing. you know, what's sales about? ABC, always be closing, always be closing, right? It's like, well, you can't ask for an order if you're not at that point in the process, right? You can't go into the first meeting and say, geez, will you give me an order for $1 million? No, you're not there yet. You need to understand what their needs are, what their requirements are. You need to understand how you address those. And then you need to make sure that they understand how you address them. And if they don't, and the only way you know this is you have to keep asking the question, right? Well, you said what was important was reliability, and our reliability, we're 99.999. You said the important thing was support. We have 24/7 global, right? You have to reinforce to them how you fulfill their needs, and then ultimately you can get to the point where you can say, I want your business. And I would say that's probably the most powerful thing that you can do, is tell someone you want their business, right? You're willing to work hard for their business. If you're a startup and you have 5 employees, and you're telling this guy that you want his business, you know, tell him, I will come in with a sleeping bag, I'll sleep on the data center floor, right? I will do whatever it takes to make you successful, right? It's a very powerful point to make to people, is that you want their business and you're not gonna let them down. And that is it. I guess not. I had one last slide. CRMs, this is the last slide. CRMs, sales tracking, you know, there's a good saying, if you measure something, you'll get better performance, and if you report on it, you'll get even better performance. Shaheen was talking about pipelines. You need at least 3 to 5x the deal flow in your pipeline to meet any goal that you set. Well, the only way that you know that you have 3 to 5x the pipeline is if you're actually tracking it, reporting it. You can use, there's free CRM tools available. If you have to, use Excel spreadsheets, but you need to track who you're talking to, what the next steps are in the process. There's great interactions with social media with a lot of the CRM packages. So it's like John Smith at Intel just changed jobs, and your CRM package pops that up to you. Oh, hey John, congratulations on a new job. You would have never known that. Maybe you'd find out 6 months later, right? Sometimes some of these will integrate with Twitter. You might see someone asking a question, hey, I'm interested in the fastest laptop on the market. Who has any ideas, right? So use these tools. They can be extremely helpful. So with that, that was my last slide. And question, yes?
So great. I love the point about that no one's going to do it for you, and maybe talk a little bit about this, because I think a lot of people might think, okay, well, I'll just hire a VP of sales then. And what I've personally found is that at an early stage, that if the founders aren't actually selling, you can't just pawn it off on a professional sales executive to go out and do it, because it takes an evangelical, passionate sale, at least from my experience. So maybe talk about, at which point you say, okay, it's time to actually delegate the entire sales process, because now we have something repeatable and whatever.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I don't know that I have an easy answer to it, to be honest. It's I entirely agree with you, though, that you cannot. When I say you can't hand off this hard work, you're right. I'm talking about you're the founder. No one knows what you've built better than you, and no one is probably more passionate about it than you. You go and you hire someone like me, and I come in and I say, oh, man, it sounds okay.
What are the kill points?
It's like, it's. I would say when you have a need for, more than a couple of salespeople, then you probably need someone to manage them. But typically what people do, and I think it makes a lot of sense, is the founder hires someone to be a VP of sales, as long as that VP of sales really views himself or herself as a salesperson, not a manager, right? So you need someone who can carry that ball for you, right? And I don't think I gave a good answer, but I did say that I wouldn't give a good answer, so.
Well, you agreed with me, so that's so I'm happy.
Yeah, great point.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thanks so much.